Is my other phone over here?
Over there, you
Let
need
me.
it?
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's off.
Marie's eyes are closed. That's my friend. How you doing, Joy?
Hey girl, how you doing?
I'm good. How y'all doing out there? Welcome. Thank you for joining us on Things My Mama Never Told Me. How y'all doing out there?
So, again, welcome. Tonight's episode is in honor of Women's History Month. Who am I versus who I want to be? Things my mother never told me how to determine. So while I say my mother taught me to be independent and have self-esteem, she never told me how to reconcile these two different selves when attempting to find balance between work life and the home. What about you, Joyce?
I felt like my mom was always on, like she was always the boss in every setting, right? So I never saw any balance from her necessarily. So while we're talking about balance, Joy, how do you find balance between work life and home life when you were married, not married, single, as a mom, like with your kids? How did that work for you? Because you've gone through several stages. So
I don't know. That's what I'm still trying to figure out. Because, you know, I have gone through several stages, and at each pivotal point in my life, I had to kind of switch up. So, first, you know what? I can say I never really worked without having children, because when I got my first full-time job, really, after becoming an attorney, I also had a child. And then being in relationships, it was a little difficult to kind of take that hat off and come home to, say, my significant other, and for him to, I guess, figure out what I wanted. Because, like your mom, you say, I was always in control. My mom managed to do both things. It was like incredible watching her. She had a full-time job. She came home. She cooked. She cleaned. She took care of the kids. And my father treated her like a queen, you know. So they had their little thing going on where she was able to maintain some type of balance. But I just kind of witnessed it and didn't really know how to maneuver it when I became an adult.
yeah, because I think it's a fine line between knowing how to be with a partner,
Right.
when you're outside of your workplace, if you are, you know, your own boss, as it was for you, or just maybe you're in an administrative position at work, or you're the boss at work, or you're in charge of projects, or whatever that role is. Like, how do you come home and, dare I say, submissive, or dare I say be different at home, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know if my mom was that person, or maybe she wasn't. Like you said, it was seamless,
Right.
and you didn't even realize
Right.
that it was getting done. But she never pulled me aside and said, okay, when you have your husband,
Right.
this is how you need to be.
Right.
Like, I think maybe it wasn't discussed.
Right. I would say also think about women who currently don't have a significant other, right? And so there still needs to be some type of balance. Like, you're on 10 at work all the time, or in school. You know, a lot of women go back to school to get more degrees, and say they're single, there's still a point in time in which you have to turn that off, you know, dial the clock back so that you can have me time. Like, we see this whole movement now where women are taking time for themselves. You know, they go work out, even shopping, whatever they need to do to have some me time. Travel. A lot of women travel solo now, I see. just to get a break, I guess, for being on 10 from 9 to 5 to sometimes 7 days a week. Like, how do you do that? How do you figure out what's for you?
And then, there's this whole, well, y'all want to be independent women.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost mocking, right? It's almost like, as some men raise their daughters, are you not teaching her to be independent? Like, where is that balance? And sometimes it's like wearing my independence became a negative.
Right.
Oh, well, she has it together. She's independent.
Right.
And,
right.
It was almost like I wasn't allowed. Like no one appreciated this independent side of me. For a time, it was like a negative.
Right.
And it was weird. I don't understand.
Right.
I don't understand. I don't understand.
Right. We have I feel like we've come to a point where we are learning how to balance the two, but it's because we're starting to also open up to one another, right? So growing up and learning history, we learned, let's talk about the Voting Rights and Civil Rights Act, for instance. We learned in the history books about a lot of women kind of paving the way. We got Annie Lee Cooper, we got Ida B. Wells, we got Ella Barker, Dion Nash. A lot of these women paving the way. Then comes along Shirley Chisholm. And then we see women even in entertainment. Oprah Winfrey. Going back to, if I got Nina Simone, one of the best. We go back to
Mae Jemison. We have a lot of women that are paving the way for us.
Yeah.
And we have men supporting us. Yeah. Except for when you're too independent, it's a problem.
Right. But when you look at these women, or when you learned about them, was that something that even into your head? Like, how are they doing both? Whether they were married or not. Rosa Parks, for instance, was married. How did they find that balance?
Society never mentioned that.
Right.
I felt like that was never talked about.
Right.
It was almost like when women as a revolution came out of the kitchen, came out of just being housewives. We weren't talked about in that fashion. We weren't, it wasn't celebrated that it was either you were in the kitchen or you weren't, and you were this independent woman running companies.
Right.
There was never, what was that commercial? I can bring home the bacon, not fry it up in the pan, never let you forget your man. It was like, where was the balance? Where was the balance?
Right. Wasn't that a song?
That was a commercial. Angelique, that was a commercial. That was somebody's
commercial for what?
Angelique, I don't know what Angelique was, but it was a commercial for something.
You making stuff.
I'm not making it up. I could bring home the bacon fried up in the pan. Don't make me look it up because I'm about to. All of that being said, I don't know when it was celebrated.
Right.
Or if society shows you doing both. It's almost like, you gotta be one or the other.
Yeah. And then Michelle Obama came along and just showed us the new modern superwoman.
Did she ever?
And then she wrote about it, right? So then we were able to kind of say, oh yeah, this is what we're gonna do. This is some guidance to what we all have to go through. And I mean, being the wife of the former president at that time, having had her own career and, standing by him while he furthered his political career to get to that stage. And if you read her first book, it was times where she didn't even know, right? But she started doing things to make herself happy.
And, speaking of people in government, when you look at Kamala as Madam Vice President, and you know, her being the first female vice president, and having is he the first? Is he the first gentleman? Is he what do they? How do they reference her husband? Gentleman. He's the first gentleman, and that just making waves and changing cultural norms. Right. That's amazing, but I don't know if they talk about her being a wife and what that looks like.
Well, let me ask you something since you brought it up. Do you think your husband could be in that position?
Oh, 100%. He would enjoy it. He'd be like, my wife's the vice president. My wife's the president. I am the first gentleman. He would take it and run with it. I think he would love it. But it's a balance, right? Right. So regardless of who I am in our marriage, who are we? Right. Right. And even I had to learn that as his partner, right? Before we got married, I think my independent woman energy was something. Yeah. And I think his thought of what that looks like was also something. And it's conversations. It's, you know, admitting that there are cultural norms. Yeah. And admitting that we may not be the norm. We may be different. Right. My husband is the cook. If that man fries some chicken, listen, Linda, listen, you know, and accepting that from him and letting him be that person. Right. And knowing that, you know, it's okay. Right. And I've literally always loved a man that can cook. Like, that's always been like, and I don't think I've ever had the you got to be in the kitchen, or I've never had that in my life. Yeah. So it's not something that I'm familiar with. Yeah.
It was funny because other men that I have been with were always intimidated by me in my career, and my husband never was. And the funny part, like, we had a joke. You were at our wedding where I was like, I promise I'll try to cook. And I promise I'll try to make 2 meats. You know, because that's what he's used to, having 2 meats, especially on Sunday. And I got in here and I tried and I didn't do so well. So he took over the cooking. Like, you know, I might cook once or twice a week, and he's tired when he comes home, you know what I mean? But he liked to eat, so he just recognized that side of me and respects it. And like, even with the dishes, babe, you tired, I'll do them tonight, you know what I mean? Because he knows I don't like going to sleep with dirty dishes in the sink, but sometimes I'm just exhausted. And knowing he is too, he gets up much earlier than I do in the morning. He's like, I got it. You know, go to bed or sit down or something like that. So I think it's, you know, it's endearing to find someone like that, and who recognizes, you know, kind of what you're going through, you know, and like, just like, what'd you say about Risa Tisa? She was so happy. And she went through it and she stayed because she espoused about it.
Someone else was taking care of it.
Yeah.
I think, you know, my father always taught me to be independent. He you know, when I went out on my little dates, 15, 16, he would give me money. But Daddy, it's a date. And he would give me money. And he'd be like, no, you always have to have your own. It's okay that it's a date. Right. But you have to have your own. Right. So it was like, you know, that's always been a thing, right? You know, there's always money in my wallet. I may not reach for the bill on a date, but there's something there. There's some money. There's a card. There's something. Right. But, you know, as men are raising their daughters, you're teaching her to be independent. But when you're out on a date, are you mad if your date is not opening up her wallet? Is she too independent? What does that look like? You know, and that's a lot. Right. That's a lot.
Right. You know, my dad was funny. Because I told you, he took care of my mother like a queen. He took care of all the bills. But he was constantly like, have your own bank account. He was so upset that I got my driver's license late. I'm like, why do I need all that? You know what I mean? Like, let me do me. He's like, no, because you got to have your own. You got to make sure. He said something crazy. In case you got to escape from somebody. I'm like, who's this pretend person that I have to run away for? Bank accounts, keep money always in the house. Like Sister Fannie Willis, whose father told her keep some money in the house at all times. So it was a lot, and that's the funny part too, the balance between what one parent will tell you, versus another parent. I think we have a caller coming in.
So the caller would like to know, can you have a healthy family dynamic if either party sees themselves as independent?
Good question.
Can you have a healthy family dynamic if either party sees themselves as independent?
So I feel like there has to be healthy conversation before you get into long-term relationships, right? And so if there's an understanding between the two parties, then I think it can work. And there may be some hiccups, bumps along the road, but so long as there's an understanding and you also realize that you kind of can't change everybody. Like, people come into marriages and relationships with set in their own ways, right? So each person has to want to conform to one another. But I mean, as long as you talk about it and there's an agreement.
So, but I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit, or ask you to clearly define understanding, right? So you said if there's an understanding. So what if my understanding was, this is how I saw my mom and dad, and his understanding is how. So how do we bridge that gap? Because we also come in with who our parents were and what we saw.
But see, I feel like people have to be honest, right?
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying, a clear understanding, meaning there has to be a conversation. My parents may have raised me much differently than someone else, than, the other person's parents. And we're real quick to say, my way was right and your way was wrong. No, it's just different, right? And then people are afraid to walk away. Like, if I am conveying my sentiments of independence to a person, and they're conveying this and theirs, and we can't agree on it, then you don't need to be with that person. And I think that's a lot of people's problem, right? They're like, oh, I gotta be with him, I gotta be with her. But even with talking to some of my friends, they say, oh, well, they were raised that way, but that's how they were raised, And sometimes you can have an agreement, especially if you're having kids together. We want to try it differently than both our parents did, or, we both work 40 plus hours a week, so we're going to agree to divide up the duties in the home. That's the kind of understanding. This is a whole different topic, right?
It is.
We could go into marriage counseling and everything else that should happen and people don't do before they get married. But I think what we're talking about is when those discussions aren't had, or there's no clear definition, we jump into the relationship anyway, and then we mad.
So it's funny. So before we got married, we did a type of assessment. It was like 100 questions. And in that assessment, it asked you how your parents did it.
Yeah.
So it asked you a whole set of questions about yourself, and he had to answer his own.
Right.
Then it also asked me, well, when I was growing up, who took out the garbage? Who took care of cars? And it was it was the first time it forced me to think about how that really forms my view. It's like growing up watching the Cosby Show or the Brady Bunch or Martin or different shows with different family dynamics.
Right.
How that really affects you.
Right.
And how that makes you see what your life should look like.
Right.
Because for a long time, I used to make my mother and father kiss each other. Because I saw it on TV. Was that I Love Lucy? It was something. But they would always kiss goodnight. And I would make my mother and father kiss goodnight every night in front of me after dinner.
Right.
And I kiss her goodnight. Because for me, that was normal because I saw it on TV. But I digress. But very important. You talked about understanding and being honest.
Right.
Do you think, sometimes you're dating to marry, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're dating.
Have fun.
You're in random relationships. Do you think people are even thinking about this? Do you think it's like, if I get together with him or if I get together with her, am I even talking about how they were raised or looking at what she thinks this should look like moving forward?
I do, because while I'm not going to play wife and not be one, there's certain ways that I want it to be treated in relationships.
Okay.
Right? And there's certain ways that whatever gentleman I happen to be with at that time wanted to be treated. So those conversations were had. And if we couldn't agree, bye. Right? Why am I staying here? And I'm gonna tell you, it's the worst when a man is intimidated by your profession. It's like, now that's why a lot of relationships didn't work for me. I'll be totally honest. It wasn't about my kids either. It's like they wanted to treat me a kind of way, and I found myself kind of falling into the trap at some point too, where I was like, well, let me try to act more like this, but I am who I am. I remember I had a male cousin who screamed on me one day because we were going somewhere, and I just went to walk through the door, and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, we going inside. And he's like, step back. I'm trying to open the door for you. Because I had just, like, I didn't even want to wait for a man to open the door for me. Like, I am woman, hear me roar. Because in another realm that took up a large amount of my time, 40 hours a week, I was trying to prove myself in what was a male-dominated profession, so to speak. Not to say there are more male attorneys, but the area that I was in, right? And so it's like, I gotta prove myself, and I kind of don't know how to turn it off.
Did you witness that? Did your mom wait for your dad to open the door?
Yes, when I say he treated her like a queen, he treated her like a queen. And look, was their marriage 100%? No. But like, I talk to my friends now, and I was like, did this seem like your parents had it this hard with navigating relationships and kids and stuff? Like, they made it look so simple. You know what I mean? Like I said, she would come home, she would cook. The only point in time is she had gone back to school at night, and it was through the week. And for that period of time, my father kind of took over the responsibility. So I had to stay at the babysitter, say an hour longer, and then he would come get me. He would make sure I had my dinner, which he would prepare. He would make sure I had my bath. And even still, there was sometimes she would prepare dinner ahead of time, and it would be leftovers because she knew she was going to be at school these days. So yeah, it was like I witnessed the things, but we never delved into a conversation. So there may have been these arguments behind the
Closed
door.
Doors.
Especially because, I think I told you before, everything he did for her, he kind of wanted me to do for myself, as if she didn't know how to do it. Right? So paying all the bills, balancing checkbooks and stuff like that. He's like, you have to know about doing this. You can't depend on anybody else to do it for you, But I'm like, she not dependent on you. It's just you want to take the lead, you know?
So we have another question coming in. Yaya would like to know, in balancing and being all the things a woman can be, what are the ways you can show up for yourself or care for yourself? What does that look like for you?
So for me, shopping used to be my pastime until it turned into a job. My mom got sick. I had to shop for her. I had to shop for the kids. So I barely had time to shop for myself. And I started to hate it, right? And then, because it wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't going around looking. It was like I'm going for the necessities and then I have to get back home. So I started by taking time for myself 3 days a week where I was going to work out. I joined this class and nobody was going to interrupt me. You know, you like, Joy, can we do this night? No, I don't miss my class for anything or anybody. Just recently, I started to take some time off because other things came up, like volunteering for certain things that I could participate in. And so, you know, I only started missing recently. And of course, when I travel, which is a lot. But just try to find something, I say, that interests you and do it.
So, Yaya, thank you for that question. That's really important because I find that I know a lot of women who they work full time, their mothers, their wives, full time, and they take care of their kids. They take their kids to every single event.
Right.
They are soccer mom. And they don't take care of themselves. They'll look down. The kids are fresh to death.
Right.
Kids get haircuts. Young ladies get their hair done, get their hair braided.
Right.
Everybody is fresh to death, and mom's nails are looking like she's been biting them for 2 weeks straight. No manicure, no pedicure, and just looking like, you know, not taking care of themselves. And I think they sacrifice themselves.
Right.
And I think you really have to talk about not sacrificing yourself, right? Putting your mask on first.
Right.
What does that look like for you? For me, it's facials, it's massages, it's...
Stay on that massage.
Girl, listen, Linda. I have to take care of me because I'm also a caregiver to my mom.
Right.
And I'm also newly married. So being able to take care of my mom, being able to pay attention in my marriage, it's important that I'm okay.
Right.
And I also work full time.
Right.
So, and they take a lot out of me too, let me tell you. But I have to give, and I have friends, right? I also have a life outside of that. I want to be there. I want to show up for you if you need me.
Right.
And show up for the other people in my life.
Right.
So that requires me showing up for me first. Right. Securing my mask, whatever that means for me.
Right.
I also too have that slight shopping habit thing, right? But you know, a nice new pair of shoes every now and again never hurt nobody. Right. You know. But again, taking care of me, making myself feel good, whatever that is. And sometimes it's a brand new pair of earrings.
Right.
And 99 cents or $99 or $9.99, whatever it is,
right.
It makes me happy. And I do that for me.
Right.
But showing up for yourselves. Thank
right.
you, thank you, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for that question, Yaya.
Remember, you and I used to shop like crazy.
Girl, look, listen.
We used to shop like crazy. And then it was like, we both kind of fell into the situation with our moms at the same time. And I never had the conversation with you. It was like, it just kind of happened where we were just like, oh, we can't even do this, or else we're in and out the store real quick.
All right, the Zoom room is hot. So the next question here is, I think it's from Sharice. Have you ever felt like you had to hold back intellectually for the sake of a man's ego? We'll pause for a minute.
Could I take a sip now?
Oh man,
Yeah.
why you gotta ask that question, Sharice?
I want Sharice to
Sharice,
answer
I am
that
happily
question.
married, sister. You were there. Can I
Yeah.
stay happily married today on this episode? Woo!
So, I want Sharice to answer that question,
I need Sharice to call in live and answer that question for herself.
but I'm gonna say absolutely not. And there have been some gentlemen who have tried to kind of break me down. Absolutely not. Because I can't say some of the things that my father said to me to make sure that I was independent. But he was like, you don't take ish from nobody. Bank account, money, in your own bank account, money under your mattress, a license, and your own car. In fact, I'm going to buy you one. You ain't got to depend on anybody. And so, I mean, my parents made me who I was, so I didn't allow that. And I think I talked about it on the last episode where I saw somebody kind of trying to go there with me. Deuces, I'm out of here. This is not who I am.
And I also think, right, you have to know your partner, right? And you either love your partner for all of them,
Right.
intellect and all, or you don't.
Right.
You have to learn that there's that balance.
Right.
I don't believe in it, right? Because I wouldn't teach a young lady to not be herself and not to be her smart self.
Right.
And whoever she is intellectually.
Right.
And if that person wants to be with you and they have an ego, they have to understand who you are. Because I have an ego too.
Right.
You're not fitting to put me in a corner.
Yeah.
And just let me shut up and look cute.
Don't put baby in the
Nobody
corner.
puts baby in the corner. Nobody puts juju in the corner, okay? Nobody puts juju in the corner. Mm-hmm. But, I also think, too, knowing when to shut up is a thing for us, too.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
Knowing when to and not shut up. I take that back.
Sip.
I take another sip. Not shut up, but maybe knowing when to let him lead. Maybe knowing when to let him lead as the man.
No, just stay with me.
Right?
Just be someplace quiet.
Knowing when to
It's loud.
to let him take charge. Knowing when to come back and fall back a step. And that's hard.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's hard. I probably would have been married sooner if I had figured that one out, because I don't think I knew the balance. I don't think I understood how to balance that. So just like taking that step back and watching him lead. And so it's not necessarily dumbing myself down intellectually.
Right.
Or going into the corner. It's letting him step up. So I think that's the balance.
You know what a good friend of mine always told me? Because I wasn't married. She was married for years. She's like, a good man knows when to stand in front of you, when to stand beside you, and when to get behind you.
I like that. Repeat that for the ladies in the back.
A good man knows when to stand in front of you, when to stand beside you, and when to get in back of you.
I like that a lot. That a lot.
And I mean, I've been friends for years, and that's when I got to witness that, but she also told me, right? I think Sharice is available now. Hi, Sharice.
Wait.
How you doing?
Good. So who's your new co-star?
Oh. So, I don't know if the audience noticed. Oh, I woke her up out of her nap. We have Cashmere, a.k.a. Cash.
Cashmere.
This is Coco's little sister. Oh, Coco walked up like, wait a minute now. And everybody knows Coco.
Hey, Coco.
They turned up for a minute, but you see now they chilling out, relaxing. So I'm sorry, Cherie. So how do you answer that question?
So look, I've definitely been with a few frogs that I went above their head when we were talking about history. I said, uh-oh.
And so what did you find?
Well, we're not married right now, so,
Right.
I'm not with those people.
Right.
But in terms of dating,
Yeah.
it's I guess that's why there is maybe one match, maybe there's more.
Right.
But in terms of dating, I'm definitely the average bear that I've met when you start having certain conversations, maybe because we're different culturally or don't have the same level of education. In some cases, it's just the way that they were brought up. My parents were raised in the South.
Right.
So when it comes to conversations regarding race and race relations, when we talk about history and how that history plays into what happens today, you lose a lot of folks.
Right. So how, if you don't mind me asking, how did these other frogs...
I like that word.
Yeah, right. How did these frogs, like, try to convince you to
not be your authentic self?
Yeah, good one. And, like, to break you down intellectually or not? Like, did they want you to just convey that in the home or at work?
No.
Like,
So I don't think that anyone ever tried to break me down intellectually. Once I knew that I took a step and they weren't ready for it, you read it right away, right? And some of the chauvinistic men, especially African American men, the ones that are very chauvinistic, they get very defensive.
Then you done opened up a new episode.
But they get further than the Caribbean men. The Caribbean men, it's like you stop right at the door. They can't handle a woman that can conjugate a verb that they cannot.
Sharice,
you done make the people call in.
You done opened up episode
10. I love it.
We might have to do how to do that hand signal. I don't even know what y'all say. New kids say that, right? Did Beyonce start that?
I don't know, but Sharice said, and I repeat, she said the Caribbean men don't want you to conjugate a verb. Sharice, tell them.
Wait a minute. Sharice. My husband is Caribbean.
And I'm Caribbean. Go ahead, Sharice.
She said men in particular. Now, Sharice, you done started some now here.
Go ahead, Sharice. Let it go. Let it rip.
Look, a lot of them are very chauvinistic.
Yeah.
Very chauvinistic. So their women can make money. They can take care of them. But it's almost like, have you seen that meme with the guy standing behind the girl in the fast food line, leaning on her shoulder?
No, I haven't.
With no money. They're okay with you working, taking care of them. But if it's your car, they want to file.
Oh, you talking about baby boy, Tyrese, baby boy syndrome.
I don't even know if that's baby boy syndrome. Some of these men are they're just raised that way. They're raised that they don't have to do anything. You do it all, and that's where I think the whole independent women movement just went way too far. They just said, forget it. Y'all want to be independent? Take care of me too.
Now
that part.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Got some T-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part.
And that hat that the people made.
So I think, and when you make the reference to the Caribbean men, right? I think it's well, in my culture, I could speak to my culture. I can't speak to anybody else's. That Haitian man and his mama. Girl, look, listen. That is a thing. That is a vibe. That mama will take care of him until he's whatever age. He could be 50 in that house living with her. And she will take care of him till the day he dies. right? That Haitian man is.
Look at you.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they're okay with you. And so here's the thing, right? They're okay with you being the breadwinner and taking care of them, but they're not okay with you talking to them like you're the breadwinner.
So I have a question. I'm sorry, Sharice, but why do you feel, or why would anyone feel that because you're the breadwinner, you have to talk to somebody like? So what does that mean? Can you flesh that out? Do you feel like?
So I don't think that women do it intentionally. But I
Okay.
have a lot of girlfriends who are the breadwinner.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, we're not, I'm working my 40 hours, sometimes 50 hours a week. And I still come home, I do the food shopping, I still cook, I still do the dishes, I still take care of the children, and you're still looking at me at 1:30 a.m. when I finish doing all that to lay on my back or get on my knees.
Girl, stop spilling the tea on the episodes.
Yes. Say it, Sharice. Go ahead. Let her finish.
So when you get to that point, I think that woman is well within her right to turn around and go, well, had you maybe had that roof fix that's been leaking for the last month, I wouldn't be so tired. I wouldn't be arguing with you and mad at you. We would have had sex more frequently than every 3 weeks.
Tell him.
Ooh, that every 3 weeks break my heart. Oh my god.
So Sharice, is it that so they're raised, right? Mama takes care of them from morning to night, and she, you got to get you a good woman who cooks and who takes care of you, and Mama throws him out into the world. Right? She dresses him up nice, he's good looking, he smells good, and Mama throws him out into the world. He didn't learn this.
Right.
He didn't learn it.
Right.
And maybe Mama's a single mom, or maybe Dad is treated like a king too. Right? And we're not even going to go into the episode. We talk about the dad may be backsliding or have the separate family that lives next door around the corner. That's a different Caribbean Men episode, right? So,
So here's the thing, right? What about the dad that's not even home?
That part.
Right? Or what about, like you said, the dad that has the family next door completely sending the wrong message to their son? So the message that you're sending to your son is that the man goes out and does what he wants to do, and the woman just takes it.
Right.
All the while, working 50 hours a week.
Right.
With whatever degree she has, taking care of children, taking care of the house, and all that stuff.
So what is your advice for this woman, Sharice? What do you say to your friend or friends that are in this situation today in 2024? That married the man and stayed with him because they had kids or whatever their reasoning is. What do you say to her?
It's two things. That independent woman thing is whack. Find somebody to take care of you. And you don't have to be black. That's one. Two, you can be broke by yourself. So whatever it is you make a year, if you come to dinner and you have the turkey in the hand and he cannot get on the sides,
Damn.
smaller dinner. He needs to go.
Damn.
He needs to go.
Absolutely.
So you got that's 3 options, right?
Yeah.
Find somebody that is equally yoked. Expand your pool of guys that you want to date. You don't always have to get someone that looks like daddy. Right? Because if daddy was good, you wouldn't be in this position anyway, but that's another episode. Or 3, you do not have to split broke. It doesn't work that way.
Split broke. How do you split broke? I've never heard that.
You can't. That's the point.
Joyce, what's that Haitian saying that says like 2 small fish can't fry in the same pan?
I don't know if I'm that Haitian, Sharice. I don't know if I know that saying, but I think I know what you're talking about. 2 small fish can't fry in the same pan. I will ask my mother when I get
You
home.
making up Haitian sayings. She making up commercials. What is going on tonight?
Two small fish can't fry in the same pan.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it.
That translates in any culture. I love that. I
But-
love that.
Now I gotta stick up for my brothers here. Men across the board be trash. Okay. they the same thing that can happen when you're in a relationship with a black man, can happen when you're in a relationship with a white man, can happen when you're in a relationship with
A Haitian man.
a Caribbean man, with a Latino man.
Yes.
Like, and you know that, Sharice, from a lot of these cases we do. We like, oh, he cutting up. You know what I mean? So,
And it's funny that you say that. So just last night, a friend of mine shared a little bit of the dynamic of her mom and her dad. And when she was in her teens and her dad tried to come back into her life, she said to her mom, "Mommy, we can do battle by ourselves. Why are we letting this fool back in?"
right.
And I think it kind of, she was angry. And she shared with her mom. And her mom, she said her mom put her foot down. She said her mom, every pan she could throw at that man and said, "We don't need you right now to come back in at 15. And I think it took her daughter behind her possibly to be like, "We good. We
Right.
good."
Right.
And now she has a better relationship with her dad. But she said she was just angry.
Right.
Very, very angry. So thank you, Sharice. Thank you for
Yes.
that.
Of course.
And Sharice, we need you. We're gonna bring you back on this to be continued episode here.
All right, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Sharice.
night.
Thank you for calling in.
So
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have a question. I have a question for the people. I want you all to pick your choice, right? Like, would you prefer to be spoiled or in the domestic position when you get home? Like, which one are ladies more comfortable with out there?
Hard pause. Are you giving only two choices?
Yeah.
What about three? What about I don't go to work at all and I just be a housewife?
But this is focused on women who are in the workplace. You know
I
what I
can't
mean?
quit my job, you said?
Now, your husband is nice, and you could be the VP or the president of the United
Yeah.
States. But I would. We have another caller,
So
Yaya.
I'll get back to that question.
Yeah, I want to see if Yaya could answer that question.
No, Yaya has her own question, I think.
Oh, okay. So tell me,
Give us a minute.
tell me, what do you feel?
So not working, is that an option you said?
No, ma'am, it's not.
I want to be spoiled when so two things, right? I think my husband works really hard.
Right.
So part of it is I need to be fair to him as well, right? And like I said, he loves to cook, so he'll come off of a midnight shift and go by ShopRite or Stop and Shop and come home with some chicken he feel like frying at 11 o'clock at night, or make a chili or make soup from scratch because he had to, or bake something because that's who he is.
Right.
So in all fairness,
Right.
I have to be there for him as well, right? Because his work looks different than mine, and though we both work hard, my work may be behind the desk,
Right.
and his work is a little bit more labor intensive.
Right.
So there has to be a balance, and we talk about that balance. But I believe Yaya is on speaker, so we're gonna take that call. Yaya, can you hear us?
Hi, Yaya.
Wait, I can't hear Yaya, producer. Hold on, Yaya. We don't hear you. Give us 1 second. Yaya?
Hello.
Hi, Yaya.
Hi, Yaya.
Hi.
How are you? Coco said
Well,
hello.
how are you all? This is so enjoyable.
Thank you, Yaya. Thank you.
Hi, Yayas. Hello, Yayas.
So what's your question for us, or what's your comment today, Yaya?
Well, I know I asked the other question about self-care, right? So can we piggyback off of that one?
Sure.
And I don't know if we could talk about like specific ways. Maybe get into some more detail about it.
You have something you wanted to share, or you're asking us? If you have something you want to share, you could share with the group, with the audience.
I have some things I want to share, and I think I saw a few memes. I've been following this guy. He's a therapist online. He's been sharing like a few things to do for self-care for himself. And I was like, how would that look for me? And I've been asking myself that question a lot now. And I think for myself, like I'm currently not in therapy, but I know that one of the most important things to do is to appease your younger self, because that's where a lot of hurt is.
Right.
So I think my self-care has involved a lot of routines lately that have appeased my younger self, like my young girl. Right. I might take myself back to the moment where I was younger and I was playing with dolls, like, and not saying that I'm playing with them, but I'm looking at them like, what did you really understand about the relationship between a man and a woman?
Right.
And how was this fun for you? Like, what did you enjoy about playing with your dolls?
Right.
And it might be like, oh, I enjoyed picking out the different little shoes for the doll, or I enjoyed combing her hair.
Right.
And then taking myself back to that moment. So that's one way of self-care for me. Another way is like intimacy. And so that looks like candlelight. That looks like my favorite perfumes, or like what scents I really want to smell like on a good day, on a day when I'm just running out to the store versus a day when I have like a nice hot date.
Right.
I'm kind of like differentiating between those different things.
Right.
So that I'm intimately getting to know myself and help heal myself at the same time.
Right.
So I wanted to know if you all have any like maybe more specific or intimate ways of self-care that we don't normally share. I don't know if you've ever thought about that.
So you know what's so funny? So you said intimacy, and I call it my days when I want to feel sexy, right? So whether it's a date with my husband before he was my husband or after, or just a day I woke up and I feel cute today. You know, I spray on that expensive perfume, and I'll swipe a mascara or a different lipstick or a really cute or a new outfit, but I never thought of it as intimate with myself.
Right,
and that's you're making me think, you are making me think about what that means for me, and taking that time for myself. And if I take that time for myself, however small, how that affects what I feel like when I come home to my husband or to my kids or to my mom or to my boyfriend, or how I show up for me on a daily basis. That's really big. And yes.
I was just gonna say piggyback behind that, those sensory details.
Yeah.
Like knowing whether or not I like to feel lace or silk on my skin.
Oh yeah.
To
make sure you write that
is
down.
something that most people don't even realize. They don't realize that. Like, do I like cotton every day, or do I like lace? Like, is that just something that feels more natural to me? Do I like lotion, or do I like something a little bit more thicker on my skin? What do you want to feel? And I think self-care can be like all of those intimate details.
Yeah.
And I bring this up because for me, like, I have really good conversations with my good girlfriends, and I had one that was going through something, and she was like, I feel like I don't know myself. And I said, I think you need to take the time to get to know yourself. And I said, that means like literally going to different lingerie stores and trying on different kinds of lingerie. She's like, I don't know about that. And I'm like, for number one, she was getting ready to get married. And I was like, if you can't make yourself feel sexy, that man is not going to do it for you.
That's right.
Girl, say it. Yes.
And you're going to be in the room with him more often. Like, this is your husband now.
Right.
She's like, do we know what kinds of music we like to dance to? Like, what makes your shoulders move? What makes your hips move? What intimately do you really like? When you think about your favorite song, what about that song really draws you in it? Is it music? Is it the drums? Is it the horns? What instrument is really calling you? So I'm just in a space for myself of like really getting deep and intimate with me and how I know me. And I think for me that's the self-care that I can best do now, because it helps me to walk into any room like I I know myself.
Right. But you know
I
something?
know me, baby. There's nobody that can tell me anything about me because I know myself that well. I am willing to learn always, but
Yeah.
I know myself. I've had the time to do that self-care work.
But
So I just wanted to share that.
you know something, Yaya, and I appreciate that because you took me back in time. And so, again, watching my mother do certain things and having her tell me about it are two completely different things. So she never had those conversations with me. But do you all remember that commercial? This is real commercial.
Whatever.
Joyce.
My commercial's real.
The cow gone take me away. And the lady used to, you know, go, like, you see the kids run through the house. She working, she doing this and that. And then she goes and takes her nice bath.
Yep.
So when I saw that, I asked my mom to buy me some Calgon, and I literally started taking a bath every morning. Like, I would get up and make time, because you know, you go from that phase where you are a child, so you're in the bath, and then you get older and you just showering like twice a day, right?
Yeah.
So I would take a bath. I would get up extra early to take a bath every morning, and then I would do the same at night. And she would say, "You're gonna dry your skin out." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I won't pat it dry." And then the other thing I started to do, because you mentioned the scents, which I don't do anymore, right? Like, I don't take the time to take those baths every
Get your photos off your phone and have a shot.
every day. And I don't go for smell goods. Like, I have a whole collection of perfume and I change it up every day. But I was like the Bath and Body Works queen at one point, right? And Victoria's Secrets, they had this favorite scent, I can't remember now, that I used to love.
Chinese blossom.
No, not from Victoria's Secrets. It wasn't that pear one either. It's called Heavenly. I can only find it like in the travel pack. So I used to make sure I did that all the time. Now, the one thing that I'm going to tell you makes me feel good and is my sexy is my hair. And I've been like that since middle school. Because my mother used to encourage that. Like, do not go outside with your hair looking a mess, okay?
Yeah.
And so I will spend money on some hair. I be sneaking wigs in here. So
That's a different episode. We're gonna talk
different
about that.
episode. So my husband don't see. I sneak different wigs in here, pocketbooks, shoes, and I get my nails and feet done faithfully. I haven't get up. I don't wait for the summertime because that's my time where I could just sit in that chair. I can let the people massage me, and I don't have to answer my phone. You know, so. But yes, thank you for taking me back to that Calgon memory, because I'm going to start just taking my time and filling my bath. Like, I got a whole bathtub.
And don't use it.
I'll share something I started during the pandemic because it was just such a hard time. And I had started working out 6 days a week because I had nothing else to do. So my body became incredibly sore, and like I was like starting my affirmations at the same time, and I was like, okay, my bathing time needs to be sacred to me. How can I make it more sacred?
Right.
So I started to bathe only by candlelight.
Ooh.
And so I
like that.
even if it's a shower or a bath, I only bathe by candlelight, and I usually say my affirmations when I'm doing that. So that's something that stuck with me, and I think that's something that really does empower me every day, because it's just like it feels like such a sacred moment, you know.
So,
But Yaya,
I try that too.
I'm sorry, Yaya, did your mother ever talk to you about these things?
No. No, I learned all of them as a woman on my own. And honestly, I didn't learn any of them until I had my son.
Okay.
I didn't learn any of them until I became a mother. And in my 20s, I was out here, you know, living. I was bartending, I was living. I was not conscious of anything. I'm looking back and I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
I don't know what I was doing.
Right.
I've always had a big heart, but these lessons, I'm thankful that you have this podcast and you're doing this work, because there are so many young women my age who can benefit from these conversations now, so that when we're in our older age, we're more graceful and we have way more wisdom than we would have had because we started younger. So thank you for this, because it's making us think, and we need to think a lot more than what we are normally doing, because we have so many images of what we could, should, and would be now, way more than when I was a young girl, right? I teach high school, and so my high school students are beating face before the morning, honey. They are coming in with full face beat.
Eyebrows and edges.
Girl.
Laid, eyelashes on. Girl, some of them are holding session before class even starts, putting on eyelashes for the day.
Right.
So, being able to pass this wisdom on to these young girls is so important, because a lot of them may not have the mothers that are going to tell them something.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Thank you, Yaya. Thank you for calling in. We have a couple other callers coming in.
I have a favor to ask Yaya. If you don't mind, can you go onto our page, Things My Mama Never Told Me, and just drop that list for other ladies to see, please?
Absolutely.
I love you. I love you. Thank you so much for that list.
Thank you, Yaya.
All right.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. I believe we have a couple of more callers coming in. Got a couple minutes. Yaya said a word. Yaya, and I've met Yaya. She is all of that. Yaya has said a word.
Right.
And you know what? And it's funny. So remember Jean Nate? And girl, my mother took a trip to Paris and came back with a bottle of Chanel. And she was all, and girl, before school, I was all, my mother, I probably got a good beating that day, but everything she did, shaving her legs and lipstick. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup until a certain age, but when they weren't looking, I was in the bathroom too, and everything. And I guess that was her self-care.
Right.
And that was her taking care of herself.
Right.
But she never explained it to me.
Right.
I saw it.
I saw it too.
And even like at this age, she's 84 now, right? God bless her. And just like, oh, I need a little makeup. I need a mirror. Can I see what my face looks like? And getting it all together. So but never explained it to me.
Right. My mother was from the South, right? So, they Southern belles. Even my godmother, they were best friends. Hi, Granny. I know you're watching. Thank you. They had this thing where they didn't leave the house. Now, neither one of them wore foundation unless they were going like out because they just had that perfect skin and didn't have to. But that hair had to be done. Nails and the hair, those styles where they had back then they were wearing the little poof. They come up.
My mother was a hairdresser by day.
So right?
You already know.
And so that hair was done, the nails was done, the lipstick was on. They didn't even wear sneakers.
No, what's a sneaker?
Yeah, when my mother got older, she's like, I don't wear sneakers. And I'm like, well, you gotta have to put these sneakers on today because you cannot walk. You can't walk in these heels. But they didn't even wear sneakers. But it's like we watched it, right? So I was like, and people kind of think I'm crazy because I'm like, you gotta do your hair. Like, don't go outside with your hair look crazy. Even my boys. Like, my boys spend more money on their hair. Well, I ain't gonna say more money. That Justice is up there with me, though. Because, he got dreads. They gotta be different colors, all of that. But even my boys don't go outside looking crazy.
You can't.
I think we have a caller. Who's this? Hi, caller.
Hi, this is Marie.
Hey, Marie. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. Thank you for joining us tonight. So Marie, I have a question for you. Do you want to be, or are you a domestic, or you want to be spoiled, or a combination of both when you get home?
So, first of all, before I answer your question, I just want to back up Joyce, because I do remember that I can fry the bacon. I can bring home the bacon fried up and all of that. And I actually sent you guys a link to the YouTube.
No, I don't
video.
believe
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
don't
Marie.
believe
Thank
you.
you. That's a real commercial.
I don't believe you neither, Marie. Y'all both
Thank you.
making stuff
Thank
up.
you, Marie.
So let the record show it's a real thing. I'm probably dating myself, but yes.
I'm younger. I forgot. It might have came out before.
Word, son, that's what we doing.
It might have came out before my time.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever.
That could be the case. But to answer your question, I mean, first of all, no, I've never considered myself the domestic type, and it's actually something that my mom was very good at, like, because she was a single mom, so she had to be, right? But in a sense, it was something I really never had an interest in. I was always looking for my my academics, or when I got into the workforce, it was always about work and advancing and doing more, and mostly because I saw how my mom worked, right? And I wanted something better for myself, and because she had to do it alone. But those were never things or skills that I felt like interested me, or that I felt I was good at. So I excelled in other places. So when being in a relationship, that was always a struggle for me, to be the domestic person or whatever. But in my professional life, I am the lead, or take the charge, and this, that, and the other. But when you come home to, you don't want to have to carry that self all the time. And maybe it's because I'm a Gemini, but I do have two sides. And you want to be softer, or you want somebody to help carry the load, if you will, or just take stuff off. I remember when I was, younger and single, things I would do for myself, like, get my own gas, or even because I had a car that used to have to, like, the oil would leak all the time, so I had to learn how to, like, put oil in my car all the time. But things like that now, I'm like, I don't do that, because my husband takes care of the car, right?
Yes.
So it's like it's almost a shift when you're forced to be in a single situation, like, a single mom raising 3 kids like my mom. You don't have a choice. You've got to wear all the hats, right?
Yeah.
But when you find somebody who is your counter, you want to be able to share that load. And sometimes you fall into, like, traditional roles, and sometimes you don't. It really depends on you and your partner, right? In my house, my husband does 99.9999% of the cooking.
Right.
And for many years his schedule was much more flexible than mine because of the type of work we did. So I, even from with the kids and things like that, like, he would be there more than I was. And that's, that takes a lot. That takes knowing your partner and having somebody that's in it, because it's whoever's, able and available to do what needs to get done, as opposed to, this is your role and this is my role, right? And I think that's that kind of balance. But I have a question for you guys. Like, you guys talked about self-care, and that's a big trend now, and people talking about, taking more time for self-care. But how do you deal with the guilt that sometimes comes with that, right? Because I think for me, for as much as I just explained, like, I was a professional, woman at work, but when I was at work, I was feeling guilty that I wasn't home with my kids. But then when I'm home or trying to self-care or do nothing, there's all these thoughts of, like, guilt, or feeling you're not doing enough, or that you should be doing something productive. So how do you turn that off?
I don't want to repeat it the way Bernie Mac said it about the kids, but, like, they'll be all right. Children are resilient, and I'm going to say that it took me a very long time to learn that, right? Because I was a single mother, and it got to a point where I'm trying to raise the children, and, like, I didn't even go to a lot of my professional association meetings and stuff like that, because I felt that I needed to be on top of them, because I wasn't losing my boys to the street. Just, it wasn't going to happen, right? And then when my mom got sick, I started to take care of her, and I found that I started to get really frustrated just in like day-to-day stuff. And I also, at the same time, was spoiling my kids out of guilt, right? Because, you know, I'm a single mother. Like, what is this all about? So it just got to a point where I was like, to hell with that. They gonna be all right. They running around going to their little activities. And so while they were in their activities, like if it was a game, obviously I would be there. But at practice, I was off somewhere else doing me. You know? So I think I had to relinquish that. And my mom never told me that part. Because remember, I said she made everything
Look seamless.
yeah. You know what I mean? So it was just something I kind of had to learn on my own, you know? And I couldn't beat myself up because if I'm frustrated all the time, I'm not doing a good job at raising them because now frustrations are now coming out in the household. Right? So, like, I just did what I could do. I just had to find a way to balance all these things.
And you know what's funny when you talk about that guilt and making it look seamless?
Yeah.
I was looking at photos of my mother out at a party. I said, when did she have time to go out? In my mind, she was always working. Like, I don't, and I remember maybe going to like a baptism, a communion or something. But I was like, when this chick had a life? Like, when did this happen? And it'll always get done, right? And I know the guilt you're talking about because I'll come home and something needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
Something needs to be folded, something needs to be washed, like whatever it is. And it's like, no, I'm gonna sit here and watch 2 episodes of something on somebody's streaming channel.
Right.
People are watching all of these things that have been on 8 years and this. I don't know where you guys find the time to watch anything 8 seasons in a row. I haven't mastered it yet. Nothing. I get through 3 episodes in the first season and something has to happen. But I'm learning to just be like, it'll be done tomorrow because there's always something to do. So that's how I get over the guilt. There's always something. I leave nobody hungry.
Right.
Hot or cold.
Right.
Right? So the bills are paid.
Right.
The AC's on, the heat is on, there's food in the fridge.
Right.
And there's clean clothes. So I leave nobody without their basics.
Right. Right.
And that's all I can do.
I binge, so I will sit till 4 in the morning and binge. Netflix is probably the worst thing they ever created for me.
Seriously, that autoplay next episode
man.
is a killer, girl.
Man. And then the other part, I have to say what the funny part is and why I say like my mother's life was seamless. Them jokers stayed outside. They got their double date on. Sometimes I be at the door crying because like they go to see Dreamgirls. Oh, you can't go. You're too young. On Broadway, they stayed at the trade school. If Aunt Winky and Aunt Louise is watching, y'all stayed at that trade school. Okay, the trade school was their little spot.
Hang out.
Yeah, they would throw parties there, and it was you know, it was bring your own brown bag.
BYOB.
Yeah, and they have food. So they literally made it look easy, you know. So, but Marie, let me ask you this: like, are these conversations that you had with your mom, and even now, right? Like, do you sometimes go back to her and say, like, Mom, I'm feeling like guilty. Like, how do I kind of get past this?
Well, so no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first of all, like, you know, as Joyce could probably say, like, we didn't talk about things growing up. You know, you don't, like, it was a very much, you know, you just do as you're told. And
Marie,
there's a lot of things.
They don't know who you are. Why do you feel that way? Which culture would that be?
So I'm Haitian. You know, when I was born in Haiti, came to this country when I was 5 years old. And we grew up here. And in the way we grew up was, you might be in America outside this house, but when you're in this house, you're in Haiti. And we had a very strict household and all of that. But my mom, you know, she was a single parent. But we didn't, you know, it was a lot about like my mom worked really hard to just, if you think about it, immigrants were coming to this country and all of that they had to do. There wasn't a lot of time for conversations around how do you, it was more about the basics. And I've never felt comfortable raising a lot of these issues. And then if you're talking about in relationships, like, my mom was a single mom. So it wasn't like I saw that relationship in front of me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have that example.
Right.
And so you start to look for those examples elsewhere. I could relate to what Joyce was saying. It was, for me, it was the Cosby Show. Like that's what I wanted when I grew up. You know what I mean? And who didn't? But it's, obviously reality but for a child, like that's what you envision for yourself. And so for me, like those are conversations that I don't think I've ever broached with my mom.
Right.
But I think that's because of the way I was raised. Like there's just certain things you just don't talk about.
Right.
I
had this conversation with Joyce actually the other day, and I said, like, you all have grown up around enough Americans to know Black people don't engage in these conversations either.
Right.
Right? I don't like to use the word, but therapy is a new thing for us because who they referred to as their crazies, there was a phrase, we keep them in the closet, right? There's no taking them for an evaluation or this, that, and the third. And I said to her, the only difference between my mom and her mom is that there was that extra layer of discrimination and a feeling of, I guess, lack of acknowledgement, so to speak, because she was also immigrating to another country on top of being a woman, on top of being a Black woman. She's had to come on and learn the country, whereas my mom was born here, right? But that's where the difference stops. Because I'm telling you all these things because these are conversations we didn't have. And as we get older, just like you said, like you kind of don't even share them with one another.
You're conditioned.
Yeah.
You're almost conditioned not to bring stuff up. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's interesting because I find that there are things now that I can share with my mom that I wasn't interested in when I was younger. Things like gardening, like things that she always had a passion for, but I had zero interest in. But now all of a sudden in my, my stage in life now, like that's something that I found I really do enjoy and that I can share with my mom. But in terms of
share it with me.
When I'm,
I said, share it with me because you see, I stay killing stuff. My mother was an avid gardener. You don't even know the
difference between a flower and a weed right now.
Ma'am, those are weeds.
Anyway, but it's interesting because I do think as I get more immersed in that, like something that we both love and share, I'm able to like open up to her a little bit more about other things. But it's always like, well, is this something I want to talk to my mom about, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a good question and it's a good thing to think about too, because when my grandmother passed, I planted a rose bush in her honor, and every time it blooms, it just brings me back to making sure like it's kind of like a reminder to about her, but then it always makes me think about all the things we didn't say, all the things we never got to really talk about, and I want to make that change with my mom before I don't have that opportunity anymore. So it is it's an interesting question that I really hadn't thought about in terms of like those deeper conversations that I should be having with her now.
And are you gonna maybe make that change with your own daughter?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is this gonna form?
So that's the beauty, I think, of this generation is that
Growth.
I have the most open like I love my daughter, my relationship with my daughter, because she does confide in me. She does speak to me. We do have these conversations, and it's a completely different experience than the one that I had, in that I try to be conscious of not being, when she opens up, not being too quick to answer and be judgmental about something or thinking I have the right answer, it's kind of like letting her let her stuff out.
Right.
And then, I'll tell her what I think, of course, and stuff. And a lot of times, it'll be like, oh, but Mom, you don't understand, right? Because we all say that.
Yeah.
And then she goes back. But the cool thing is she'll go back, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, so you were right. Or, so I try, and that's the reward for me, is that I get to see this storyline play out different through her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think kids nowadays, well, some of them are a little more open. They're not necessarily afraid to ask questions. 'Cause my sons just have no shame. I don't know if it was just like we were all we had, but they didn't have any shame with me or my mother for that matter. And we would just be like, oh gosh, where does this question come from? And sometimes getting caught off guard and not even knowing how to answer. But I just beg of you, have conversations with Mom. Like, it's one of the, I'm not going to harbor any more guilt about it. I've kind of moved past that. But my mom and I were close. We were very close. It's just, I didn't think to ask her until this, no, not even it's too late, until this one crazy thing happened. Like, it was a funny thing. And I was just like, you never told me that. And so then I started to ask her questions about certain things and keep note of it, right? Because I had this idea in my head as a book, but there was so much by that point, right? So it was only so far that I could go before she got sick, and she just couldn't tell me anymore. So I would just kind of sit and talk, and she would, I know she was listening because she would do her and that when a black woman say has 50 different meanings to it. So I'm like, wait. Yeah, so I just encourage you, Mom is here, and just have the conversations, know? And you gonna hear some funny, crazy stuff when you when you do, and things that'll shock you, like, oh, I didn't even know. I didn't catch on to that. So yes, thank you for calling in and sharing with us.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay, take care.
That not asking questions.
Yeah.
That's real, and I think as we grow as a society, I think as we grow as people, right, regardless of black, white, Haitian, just speaking.
Yeah.
Just learning to talk to one another, learning that, culturally, we're not the only ones that go through this. Like, we're all women.
No.
Right? We're all women, and we all go through different things. So just learning that at times we're more alike than we are different.
Yep.
We're definitely more alike than we are different. You have your stories with your mom. I have my stories with mine. And like you say, she's still here, and it's hard sometimes because in the back of your mind, she's still my mother.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna ask her what now? And it's almost that fear of and growing up in that Haitian household. There are things you didn't talk about.
Right.
There's just things you didn't talk about.
I told you, we put our crazies in the back room. So therapy, what is that? But I have to say, just even in reference to this topic, as long as we've known each other, we didn't discuss this type of thing. Because I feel like, I don't know if it's out of embarrassment or what, that a lot of women, don't share with one another.
We were being independent. We were being I guess so. And I don't know. I think, like, society. Yes, I'm gonna blame society. I'm that cliche. I think independent black women. You're not allowed to be soft some days. You're just not allowed.
On 10 all the time.
And then it's like, if you're soft or if you have expectations of someone else filling in that gap, then she's a gold digger.
Right.
But then when you're too in what they call independent, it's I couldn't be with her because she want to be the boss all the time. Well, which is it?
Yeah.
Well, which is it?
Yeah.
So it's totally it's a balance. And what was that? A strong man knows what? What did you say earlier?
Oh, a good man knows when to stand in front of you, when to stand behind you, and when to get behind you. Stand next to you, and when to get behind you.
And I think your partner, it's that balance with your partner. And like Cherie said, if that partner doesn't understand that balance, deuces, we out. Like there were a lot of frogs.
Right.
And you didn't kiss the frog. When you kiss the frogs and they turn into a prince, you left them.
Right.
And it's just knowing what it is. And just, for anybody that's joining us, also knowing when you are in that soft space,
right,
that self-care piece and what that means for you. And taking time to invest in you. Mm-hmm. I think, and it took me a long time to figure this out, knowing you, knowing me, knowing that I want that softness,
right,
knowing that I want that balance,
right,
that's very important.
Right.
That's very, very important, knowing that I want that balance.
Right.
And admitting it. And knowing it doesn't mean that I'm weak.
Sorry.
And if I could take it to church for a little bit, right? Eve came from Adam. She was a part of him, right? And she became his helpmate. And balancing that and learning to be that helpmate.
Right.
Learning to be a part of him and him being a part of you.
Right.
It's a lot.
Right.
It's a lot. And I have another caller coming in, producer. Thank you.
Hi, caller. Sorry, I was going to say something.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Who do we have tonight? How are you?
Hello. This is Marcella. How are you ladies doing? You're doing a fabulous job. I definitely enjoyed the show this evening.
Thank you, Marcy. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I just want to say, Marie, the last caller that came in, Marie, you were amazing. Words out of my mouth. So I'm not going to reiterate what you talked about. But I also want to sort of piggyback on that. And I started sort of thinking about my mom, and some of these things that Marie talked about sort of resonated. And the one thing was the opposite is that my mom was this amazing woman, extremely elegant, extremely classy, feminine, independent. She was authoritarian at times. My father just sort of gave her the red carpet, but they had an amazing marriage, an amazing balance. And my mother definitely prepared me for womanhood. I look at my life now and I say, anytime there's any trials and tribulations that are occurring in my life or something that I'm faced with, I always sort of revert back to the files. And the files is the lessons that my mom taught me. Right. And she also taught me how to be a woman, and how to be a wife, and how to cater to a man. As independent and self-sufficient as my mom was, she also taught me how to be submissive. And I think that when we hear that word submission, it's sort of like a plague or a taboo. I think that in the society that we are raised in, we are taught to not to need a man and not to be submissive to a man, because that's something negative that sort of is ingrained in us as little girls. Right. Our Caucasian sisters go to college to find their husband. We go to college to find a career.
Yes,
and then
yes.
later on in life, we get married, and then we want to have children, and then there's a hiccup because you know that when women start having their children after 30, 33, then there are oftentimes some health issues that go with that. So, but one of the things I wanted to sort of go back and say, one of the ladies that spoke earlier, she spoke about men and her duties as a wife, her expectations, her husband's expectations as a wife, and that, she just could not do that. And one of the things, and no disrespect to her, I love what she had to say, but for all women, sometimes I feel like we really have to stop blaming men for the choices that we make. I mean, women must stop to identify themselves and look at the patterns that they have accepted in men or the men that they selected. So and understanding conversation is key, but understand this is that when you have those conversations, you have to listen and see the flags, okay? And it doesn't get any better. A man doesn't change for you unless he wants to, and we definitely know that. And also, I want to go back to Joyce, when you said the word submission, when you were talking about, your journey, and you cringed at that because it was sort of like, and I saw your body language, and I'm like, yes, that's it. When we talk about independence, it doesn't mean that you have to relinquish yourself or not be able to be submissive in the relationship. One of the things that we forget as independent women is how to be feminine. And I always say you get more with bees than you get with honey. So we want to say we want our man to take charge, but we don't want to give them that charge. We don't want to be submissive, and we don't realize that we're not being as feminine as we should. Self-care is a key, and intimacy within ourselves is an amazing plus. But how do we intertwine that into femininity and also being submissive? I mean, being a supervisor, being in charge of a team. When I come home, I love to be submissive to my man, and it doesn't take anything away from me because I know that doing that, I get more bees with honey than I get with vinegar.
Mercy, so, I cringed because I know it's not the popular, it's a word, right? That word submissive, it's a word. And, but that's what it is. It is totally being submissive. And anybody who knows me knows like 9 times out of 10, I'm like a bull in a china shop. So it may even seem out of character for me, but knowing that I can be that person with my husband, it's important to me, right? And so,
Right.
And knowing I can still be feminine and it doesn't take anything away from my control. That's and who I am as a woman when, whether it's my day job or what have you, but just really and enjoying that. And I guess that's what this talk is about. And I think you mentioned women to stop blaming men for the choices that they make. And that's possibly a whole other episode as well. I think, when Sharice called in, she said the number one thing is you can leave. The number one thing is you can leave if you're unhappy. And I think, we could talk about that at length. We could talk about that possibly for 3 hours and all of that on another episode. But that is definitely very important, knowing that you have the power. But at the core, sometimes, I think we don't know we have that power. And at some point, when we're in different situations, we give away power. And refinding that power, rekindling it, and understand what that is for you, getting to know you, being intimate with you, coming full circle to your power and where it really lies, that really matters as well when we're talking about why people do what they do and maybe why we tend to blame others as opposed to realizing that the power lies in us.
So my arms are folded like a child. I don't care. And I'm rocking back and forth because I got triggered, right? I don't, and I never have understood why submissiveness is associated with being feminine. Like I just don't get that. You know, I feel, and that's why I said what my friend said to me about a good man, you know, really kind of made me have more positive thoughts besides, you know, seeing my mother and father's relationship and other people about marriage, because I was like, why do I have to be submissive? Why? I'm not asking my spouse to be submissive, but why can't we just treat each other like equals? Why do I lose my femininity because, you know, I'm not on the floor scrubbing, you know, with a hand sponge, right? Why can't I have balance at work and balance at home? You know, let me finish. The same way I know how to treat my husband, and that's what I like about us so much, is we know what each other is feeling. Sometimes he comes home and his feet hurt. Sometimes I come home and my feet hurt. You know what I mean? But when I come home and my feet hurt, he doesn't expect for me to stand up and cook a full meal. And when he comes home and his feet hurt, I don't expect the same. The only thing I will not do is take out the garbage. Okay? So everything else I'm okay with except for that. So if his feet hurt, he still got to take that garbage out. But I just I just feel like we kind of put ourselves in this position because society teaches us that at some point we have to be submissive to a man. That means putting yourself in a position where you're beneath someone.
So you said submissive.
I disagree because when we think about submission, and everybody, I think because that word is sort of tied to something punitive as it relates to like being a slave. But when you're talking about being submissive to your man, your marriage, it means his selflessness. It just means to service him as he services you. It means accountability. It means respect. It means putting trust in him and making the best decisions for your family.
But it has to go both ways, and the term submissiveness doesn't allow for it to be both ways.
Right. I don't think that you should be submissive to a person that's being disrespectful to you and stuff. It's a whole different topic altogether. But when you are coming together, I think when we are sometimes in a relationship, it's hard for us as independent women. We're strong. We're taught to have our own. We're educated. We're taught to maintain our finances. And it's hard to sometimes relinquish that, you know, society, and I hate the terminology, force, you know what, relinquish that to a man. But when you are having trust and this man is protecting you and he's providing for you and he's confessing his love for you, I don't, personally, this is just my opinion, I don't have a problem with being submissive. I just love that, you know, because at the AM, I'm a different person in terms of my personality, what I have to do on a daily basis. But when I come home, I want to be loved on by my husband.
So, and thank you for sharing that, Marcy. Just a couple of points. So, Joy, you said, I don't have to be on my hands and knees scrubbing the floor. So in your mind, when we say the word submissive, that's what you see?
Yes, because that was conveyed throughout my upbringing, not with my mother, because she wasn't submissive to my father, right? And he was still able to treat her like a queen. But in society, we were taught, you know, through images on TV shows that the wife is a stay-at-home person and they're submissive. Okay, maybe they have enough money, you know, to hire a maid so that the wife isn't physically on the floor, but they had to have a certain type of attitude and be in a certain position in the house. They weren't equals.
So the definition of the word submissive, according to New Oxford American Dictionary, ready to conform to the authority or will of others.
And you know.
Meekly, obedient, or passive. Why can't we be submissive to each other?
You shouldn't have to be. Look at the definition you just read. It's a negative connotation. Your significant other is not supposed to be in a position of authority over you, right? You hold on, because you read it, you asked me, and so in some positions we have to be submissive to a boss, or somebody who is in another position of authority at work. So you mean to tell me I gotta come home and be obedient? A dog has to be obedient to its master. Even though clearly I have no authority over Coco and this new thing that came up in here, but like talking about slave and master, pet and owner. That's not a relationship of love to me. And my husband certainly doesn't try to rule over me, nor I him. We have a equal partnership. And some people say that doesn't exist. Okay, somebody might give 49, to the 51 on certain things, but you get through it. Like I think I said it before, and Maria reiterated it. You have to have a conversation. You know what I mean? But the word submissive. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm mouth breathing. The word submissive has a negative connotation to it when you're talking about using that same definition and applying it to a relationship between two people who are in love. Man to man, woman to woman, man to woman, or just not married, period.
So, and then similar words are compliant or yielding.
Who's doing that?
But that's also an Oxford dictionary. But if you dive deeper into the terminology and the meaning of submission, it's also a willingness to compromise, active listening, respectful behavior, a desire to please, trust in their partner's judgment, a supportive nature, adaptability, emotional support. I understand that we live in a society where we hear that word, it's negative. But if you encompass that in your relationships, like I said, you get more bees with honey than you get with vinegar. And that's just my personal opinion. I mean, when we go back to willingness to compromise, submissions are open to finding a middle ground and prioritizing each other's needs.
I respect.
It's hard. Right.
I respect your opinion, but also those were annotations made to the dictionary as the women's rights movement moved forward in recent times.
Okay.
Those are very new definitions because they're trying to make it a positive, because those were exactly the same things that people were complaining about. The original definition of the word is what it is. Okay, so you can't come back in 1994 and add to the definition and think that that's going to take the original meaning away from the word. Those are things that are completely contrary to being submissive. Those words are what they are, and then you can find words that definition is applicable to. But that's not what submissiveness is. Submissiveness is the original definition that Joyce read the first time. Submissiveness doesn't allow compromise, because you can't compromise with a person in authority who you're yielding to. It's an oxymoron.
I could see that.
It doesn't make sense.
I could see that. I can see that you can't compromise. But you said something. You said that there have been changing. We evolve and we change. Right. So as they add annotations to the dictionaries, as we evolve and grow as a people, as a nation, as humans, we can't make room for those changes, or are you saying that that word submissive just should not be used because it brings a connotation of you on the floor scrubbing with the brush?
I'm not saying the word shouldn't be used because, again, the dogs who I have no control over are supposed to be submissive to me, right? But don't try to now. Hold on. Don't try to now, throw in different meanings to change the original definition. Just use a different word. It's that
So
simple.
can I use compliant? Or that doesn't...
That's a negative connotation.
Being compliant?
But it's,
Who am I being compliant to? That ain't my daddy. It's my husband. I'm sorry.
But if you look at Ephesians 5:22, wives submit yourself unto your own husband as unto the Lord. And Ephesians 5:23, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. And in Ephesians 5:24, therefore, as the church is subjected unto Christ, so let the wives be to their husbands in everything.
All right,
I'm gonna just cut this off because I don't want to do. Hold on, I don't want to do religion here because we gonna be on this phone. Trust me, sis, and you my sister. Everybody know that. This is a whole 2-hour show.
Right, but then when you bring up the Oxford book and you talk about the Bible, then there's a whole different conversation. Because I could care less about the Oxford dictionary, but when the Bible speaks it, that's what we need to listen. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, but we also, I'm sorry, we need to go back, and that's why I said I really don't want to go into this topic right now because in terms of the Bible, there are the words of Christ and then there are words written by man. And a lot of that stuff is contradictory. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm in it. I study my Bible, but there's some stuff in there ain't jiving.
So Marcy, thank you. Thank you for your call. Thank you for your opinion. The producer is flagging us down over here. We will invite you back when we talk about this, when we bring this subject, when we come back on this subject again, because we could spend a whole show on this. And I was actually waiting. I didn't even think you picked up on when I said the word submissive, and I cringed a little bit. So thank you for catching that, and thank you for bringing it to the forefront.
We want Marcy as our special guest because me and my sister. Me and Marcy talk on the phone every day, 2 or 3 times a day, and we be getting it in.
This was good. Thank you, Marcy. Sometimes we need to not agree. We need to agree to disagree.
All right.
I like this. I like this a lot,
Marcy, you got your glass?
I do. But you ladies are doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Marcy.
Love the show.
Thank
the
you.
callers that came in this evening was amazing. Definitely had me thinking about a couple of things. So thank you very much for actually inviting me.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you for chiming in.
Thank you. We want to.
Okay, ladies.
Good night,
Good night,
I'll call
Marcy.
you later. So at this time, we want to ask you because you ladies, like in just these last 2 episodes, in your questions and answering questions, you bring up a lot of good topics. There is stuff that is on our list, and there's stuff that you will bring up, and we're like, ooh, because we think about these things every day on the fly. Again, this is 16 years in the making, so there was some stuff that some topics that existed when I started, and then now it's getting,
we build on it.
yeah,
We build on it
and getting more mature. There's things that for me my mother never got a chance to tell me, right? So remember to like, share, subscribe to YouTube. If you want to suggest different topics, please go to our page, Things My Mama Never Told Me. You can list the topics there. Turn on your YouTube notifications and your Facebook notifications. And we just really thank you for joining us. You have anything to say, Joyce?
Thank you for giving us this space. This was 2 hours. Wow, this was amazing. Time has flown. Just big up to the community that stands behind us.
Yes.
Big up to the women that call us, that text us, that answer, that comment on YouTube, comment on WhatsApp, comment on Facebook. Please tell your friends, tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yes.
You can always call in. You know how to get in contact with us if you want to call in while the show is going. Our producer is monitoring all the chats. He will let us know. He will facilitate that call in. Thank you to my husband, who I think's at home with my mom. Thank you, babe.
He got a petition out for you to be the VP. He don't watch.
He's on the caregiver patrol tonight. Thank you, Jesus. And he waiting for me to be VP so that he could chill. The producer wants to get with Marie. She sounds cute.
But thank you again tonight, and please take some lessons. I know we certainly will. You hear us both sniffling. We both have been sick for like the last 2 weeks.
It's crazy.
And we still got to take care of our household. We still had to work, even virtually. If we got the day to stay home, we were both working virtually. So let this be a lesson.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself, because the fact that we up here and you see I still got my glass of wine is just a hot mess. So again, my thanks to everyone who shared, liked, subscribed, gave constructive criticism even.
Yes.
I really do thank you all for that. Shout out to my husband who always puts up with my shenanigans. Again, we are equally yoked. We're not submissive to one another. Okay. And to my dear mom, rest in peace. Shout out to you for the things you never told me. I know if you was here watching this tonight, you would just be like, girl, you didn't know that? That was her favorite saying. So have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. That was fun.
I know.
That was
We
good.
cut up. We need a vaporizer today. Girl, I'm coming to your house. Check it out.
I need some Vicks. I need something on his nose. What is it? Vicks your chest, your temples.
No.
Oh, man. These sniffles are something.
I should have shout out my mother-in-law because she got a special oil.
There is an oil. I'm sure there's an oil.
Thieves.
I'm
She
Haitian. You know
Caribbean.
there's an oil. There's an oil.